Go. The word median popped up, and you may have remembered that I added that to a box and not a quote. That's spelled wrong. That's mead like honeybee. Median. There we go. I like to consider this one of my top 3 measures of center. The average is one of them. We like the average. He's a good measure. The median's number. And sometimes the median and the average actually do the same thing. They measure exactly the same quantity. But they're not calculated the same way. Anybody ever calculate a median before? Some of you may have. Some of you may. Tell me your name right there.
Natasha.
Natasha, thank you. How do you do it? Help me.
You line them up in order and go in the middle.
Excellent, excellent. So median, you think about like when you're driving on the road, the median on the road is the strip that's in the middle of the road. Okay? Whatever the road, however wide the road is, the median is in the middle of that, if they built it right. So I've done a small favor by actually putting the data in order up there for you, so we're one step ahead of the game there. We've got 32 data points. So the smallest one is one of the zeros over there. The largest one is one of the 8s over here. Where's the median?
3.
Say that again, Natasha.
3.
How do you know it's 3? I see a lot of 3s. What 3 are you looking at?
The third one.
The third one, good. I'm looking at the fourth one too. Is it okay if we both look together?
Yeah, but wouldn't you do the average of those
Yes,
two? Okay.
very good. So Natasha has noticed that there is a bit of an issue. So the median, by definition, it's the, I like to put the word geographical in. It's the geographical middle value of the ordered data. Or sweet. So it's the middle value when your data is ordered. Okay, so I'm going to swing back over to our data here so we can see it. So I've already ordered it for us. That makes the life a little bit easier for us. So to find the middle, there's a couple ways you can do it. One is kind of mathematical. There's 32 data points. Splitting that in half would put 16 below and 16 above. So you'd have to go to the 16th data point here and also the 17th, wouldn't you? Because those are the 2 middles. And then you'd have to find the point halfway between them. Well, halfway between 3 and 3 is still 3. So this one would just have a median of 3 because there's actually just between 3 and 3 is 3. Somebody said average the 2 middles. I love that. That's 100% correct. Yeah, average, if it was 3 and 4, just call it 3.5. If it was 3 and 12, call it 7.5. But also question, is there something going on to make it 3 and 12? It might be that the data set is so small that the median might be slightly meaningless. We'll get into that too in this course, I promise. I don't want to throw a bunch of weird exceptions at you right away. So yeah, simply put 3 and 3, halfway between it is 3. If we had an odd number, like for example, we took the 0 away, then you'd only have 31 data points. Then you'd go 15 in, and you'd have 15 above, and you'd have 1 data point in the middle. Just circle that one and call it, but it'd still be 3 in this case. So our median in this case is just 3. So let's start collecting some data. Average number of keys is 3.3 keys per student. So here's the average number of keys. The median number of keys is 3.
That's a more logical number.
Why is that more logical?
Because
Sure.
you're never gonna have 0.3 keys.
Love it, and that's one of the first and foremost snickers I get. We're ever talking about average, you know. But sometimes, and it's usually with count data, you're always going to snicker, because when you count with whole numbers. With measurements, you can totally have decimals. Like if you're talking about the average weight of a key you guys had, it'd be a totally different story. Then you'd be like, oh, 3.3 ounces. That's totally feasible. I love that. But you can always add a decimal or two to make an average seem more palatable. 3.3 keys per student is 33 keys per every 10. So you can make it a little more palatable that way. But I love the fact that it's more believable. Why else do we have 2 different kinds of center measures, average and median? Now ours are very close in value. Yes, 3 and 3.3, they're very, very close in value. And there's a reason they're close in value. But ignoring the reason, why? Can you ever think of a time they wouldn't be close in value? Let's throw that out there. John's hand goes right up away. Go.
That example you gave earlier about like having
Nice. Nice. Did you catch that? That was very, very nice. The example I gave earlier, when you've got two sets of 10 families, one family is 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2. The other family is 25, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So, which number would be more typical for each family? Well, for the 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, the average is 2.5, and so is the median, isn't it? Because if you put those in order, you'd have 5 2s and 5 3s, and halfway between them is 2.5. For the other family of 25 with a bunch of zeros, that also has an average of 2.5. But it's got a median of 0. Which number does a better job of representing typically what's going on with that set of family? Clearly the 0, right? Because most 90% of the families have no kids, in that sample, of course. Have no kids, and the 125 we would term, you know what the term is for that? It's an outlier, and there's ways to quantify that. That's an obvious one. There are not so obvious ones that exist in the world. We'll get to that in this course. But yeah, when you have extreme, very extreme, or even slightly mild outliers, averages tend to, what are they called? They're called sensitive to outliers, because they tend to head towards the outlier. So that data set that was 25 and then 9 zeros is 2.5, because the average is getting pulled towards that outlier of 25. That might not be indicative. I remember, for example, when we built our house back in 04, I think it was, in Bend. And it was when everything was going nuts in Bend. People were building houses left and right. I mean, we woke up to 7 in the morning and explosions were going off because they were dynamiting basalt to put houses in. And some dude, in a couple of years after we put our house in, it was 06, late 06, early 07, he borrowed $500,000 and spent $250,000 of his own money and built this gorgeous house up on the northeast side of town. Our houses are pretty small, pretty modest, and this thing was totally trick. I mean, he was trying to sell it for $1.1 million in my neighborhood, where houses were going for, even at the height, like maybe $250,000, $300,000. And my neighbors got all excited. They said, "Oh my God, our house values are going to go up." I'm like, well, A, he's got to sell it first, which he never did. He went to foreclosure on it. The mortgage was $3,500 a month. I mean, yeah, on an unfinished house. But anyway, and I said, you know, and honestly, that's not a very indicative idea of a house value in our neighborhood. And you'll notice, if you check out real estate prices, they very rarely use an average. They very often use a median. For the exact same, slightly less exaggerated reason that John was just talking about. The 25 zeros data set is kind of like the example of having that house in my neighborhood. You got a bunch of houses that are all worth a couple $100,000, but this guy drops this $1.1 million one in there. Should that really indicate that the average price of all of our houses just went up? I mean, maybe by some real estate formula it should, because they do comps, but realistically speaking, no. I mean, he dropped an outlier in the neighborhood. That should not affect the values of our houses. So the median would be a more realistic way of looking at house prices there than an average. That doesn't mean people do it that way. I got some examples, we'll get to them probably next time, but there's some examples of using an average to intentionally mislead people or unintentionally. Well, I'll let you guys decide if it's intentional or not. Cool so far? The only other one that will come up in conversation sometimes, the 3 M's in statistics. And there are a lot more besides these 3, but these are the only 3 I think that are worth chit-chatting about right now. The mean, the median, and the other one that you've maybe often heard of. Yes, the mode. He's our friend too, sometimes. He's useful sometimes because he's the only thing we can do. I'll talk more about that briefly. Those of you that have heard of the